You were born by the water, in a port town where salt eats through metal as steadily as the hardship eats through people. Here you learn the price of rope and bread early. If your father didn't return from a voyage, it isn't a tragedy from a play. It's an empty bowl and a debt that will come anyway. You grow up among docks, warehouses, and taverns, where sailors talk about war as if it's always nearby, only changing flags. When you're still small, rumors run along the waterfront about big money moving through the Caribbean, sugar, tobacco, cocoa, indigo. But what reaches you faster than money are the consequences. Crippled men, faces burned by tropical sun, a fever that turns a strong man into a shadow in a couple of days. The sea doesn't promise. The sea sends the bill. You come of age in years when Europe is tired of war, and that sounds like good news only on paper. After the big war ends, the sea is left with thousands of former sailors and privateers who are no longer paid for legal plunder. There aren't fewer ships, but there is less work and less wages. Ports are full of hungry men, and the authorities, if anything, grow greedier. Taxes, bans, inspections, debts. You see people dragged off the quays into service by force. In years like these, it isn't a legend. It's an ordinary fear. It's dangerous to walk alone at night, because in the morning you might wake up on the deck, hired without consent. At first, you try to live normally. You sign onto a merchant ship, and you quickly understand. On paper, you're a sailor, but in practice, you're expendable. The captain saves on rations, the boatswain saves on rest, and the storm saves on your bones. The hold reeks of damp and rats. The water in the barrels turns warm and foul quickly. The hardtack crawls with weevils, and no one treats it as an emergency. It's just the background. You work until your hands go numb, because the sail won't wait, the rope won't wait, the tide won't wait. Illness here isn't dramatic. A scratch festers, a tooth rots, a fever knocks a man onto the boards, and that's it. He's done. They'll find his replacement in the next port. And Caribbean ports are their own world. Kingston, Port Royal, Havana. Small Bahamian coves where ships hide from the wind. There the taverns are always louder than the church because the tavern is the labor exchange. Inside sit brokers and recruiters. Some looking for hands for merchants. Others looking for men who don't ask too many questions. Sometimes recruitment looks like persuasion and promises of a share. Sometimes it looks like a debt that suddenly becomes yours, or a mug with something extra at the bottom, after which you wake up already on board. You arrive in Nassau, on New Providence, when you can still disappear into a crowd of men like you. The harbor is shallow and ringed with reefs, awkward for heavy warships, but almost protective for fast pirate. Sloops. People walk the streets with a lot of sea in their speech and very little law. There is no romance here. There is a market for stolen goods. If you bring merchandise, someone will look the other way and buy it cheaper, but immediately. Fences don't ask where you got the sugar or the cloth. They care about weight, quality, and how fast the deal can be done. One evening you find yourself in a tavern where the talk isn't about weather, but about how the war is over and hunger isn't. Next to you sits a man who looks not at your face, but at your hands. Calluses are the best passport for a sailor. He speaks plainly. On a merchant ship, they wear you down for wages. Here at least you know what you're risking for. He doesn't promise you an easy life. He promises only a chance. And it sounds more honest than anything you've heard in years. The ship you end up on doesn't look like a line of battle engraving. It's a working machine built for speed and maneuver. Most often it's a schooner or a sloop. Small, light, with a shallow draft so it can slip through shoals and duck into coves a pursuer won't dare enter. Here a ship is valued not for beauty but for how fast it can catch a merchantman or outrun a patrol. You learn the price of small things. A clean hull runs faster than one furred with barnacles. Sometimes the crew deliberately careens the ship, hauling it over in a quiet bay to scrape the bottom and pay the seams with tar. It's filthy work. Tar sticks. The sun burns. Your hands get cut on shells. But afterward, the ship feels alive again on the water. The economics of this vessel are simple and cruel. Every barrel of water is space that could have held powder. Every extra gun is weight that eats speed. Every sail is cloth that must be repaired, patched, and stitched again. Ropes chafe and snap, sails shred in the wind, wood rots in the tropics. The ship's carpenter matters more than fine speeches. If he doesn't stoppage, leak in time, no one cares how much you took yesterday. Tomorrow you drown. The crew isn't like the Royal Navy, but it isn't a free-for-all either. Everyone has a role, and if someone doesn't do his job, it shows immediately. The navigator keeps the course and measures the run by sun and stars because Caribbean charts often lie and reefs do not forgive. The boatswain watches the rigging and makes sure men work in sync. To hoist a sail isn't just pulling a rope, it's a dozen moves in the right order. Miss the timing and a spar can smash you or a line can crush you. The gunners handle the guns, not only firing but servicing them, cleaning them, keeping the powder dry. The carpenter and sailmaker repair what the sea breaks every day. The cook makes what can be called food, often little more than boiling salt meat and peas, stinking, greasy water but hot, and therefore sobbing. And there is a man who watches the plunder and the balance inside the crew, sometimes called the quartermaster. Not a romantic second captain, but the one who holds the line between greed and discipline. You sign the articles, rules that sound like a contract but operate as the internal law. They set shares of plunder, fines, and compensation for injury. Lose a hand, and you get a certain sum or share, because on board, they understand what a wound costs. It isn't humanitarianism, it's calculation. A man needs to know he won't be thrown overboard the moment he becomes a burden. Punishments are written in two. Stealing from your own is the harshest. Drunkenness on duty is too. A pirate ship cannot tolerate chaos, because chaos sinks you faster than an enemy broadside. You quickly learn that the main enemy at sea isn't battle, it's supply. Water runs out faster than you expect. It's rationed, hidden, spoiled. Powder fears moisture. Kept dry, fuses protected, sparks watched. Sails and lines are consumables. And when the storm hits, you understand that tearing a sail isn't losing a race. It's losing the ability to escape. In the hold sit barrels of salt meat, sacks of hardtack, sometimes rice or beans, sometimes stolen sugar that quickly turns into a sticky lump. Rum and spirits aren't a celebration, they're a tool. They help you endure cold nights and foul water, but they also make men duller and meaner if they aren't controlled. Shipboard life strips illusions fast. You sleep wherever there's space, on planks, on a coiled rope, beside the gun because there is no spare corner. Lice, bed bugs, rats are inevitable. The stink of the hold is rot, tar, sweat, wet wood. Wounds are routine. Torn skin from a line, knife cuts, burns from hot metal, bruises from the roll of the ship. And then comes what you never hear in songs. Scurvy. Weeks without fresh fruit and vegetables turn gums into bleeding pain. Teeth loosen, old wounds stop healing. You learn that the sea can kill not all at once, but slowly. A strength leaks away until a man can no longer haul a line, and all of it sits beside weapons that look rough and utilitarian. Many carry flintlock pistols that are good for 1 second and bad for 10. One shot, then smoke, then the struggle to reload if there is time at all. Muskets are heavy and fussy in humidity. Cutlasses and heavy knives are used because decks are cramped, and it's easier to swing a short blade than to aim. There are boarding axes to cut lines, break doors, pry open hatches. Sometimes there are crude grenades, small vessels filled with powder, dangerous to the enemy and to you, because on a wet deck everything depends on luck and a hand that doesn't slip. But more often fighting starts not with blades but with guns. Small ships carry a few cannon and swivels loaded with grape shot and scrap iron to sweep an enemy deck. In the moment of a shot, you don't feel heroism. You feel the punch in your chest from the sound and the smoke that stings your eyes. Powder smoke thickens the air like dirty cloth. Men shout because otherwise they can't be heard. Recoil drives the gun back. The crew runs it out again, sponges the bore, loads again, on a rolling deck, on slick planks, where one mistake can break your leg under iron. You see that most captures aren't built on beautiful duels, but on fear and calculation. A merchant captain doesn't want to die for a cargo of sugar. Pirates often rely on effect. Flags, the display of readiness, the roar of cannon. Sometimes they hoist the black flag, sometimes the red, signaling there may be no quarter. It's pressure, meant to make the prize surrenders faster. The faster it surrenders, the less damage to the ship and cargo, and the less time you spend visible to patrols. And if there's resistance, you realize the deck fight doesn't resemble a legend. Cramped space, blood on wet wood, screams, smoke that makes breathing hard, and panic that spreads faster than fire. Once the prize is taken, the ugliest part begins, accounting and division. Not all gold shines. Most value is cargo. Bolts of cloth, barrels of sugar, tobacco, cocoa. Sometimes weapons, sometimes powder, sometimes medicines worth more than coins. It all has to be assessed, hidden, stowed, so the ship doesn't sit deeper and lose speed. Prisoners and passengers are kept under guard because one extra shout can become a signal to another vessel. You see how quickly plunder turns into a logistics problem. Too much and you become your own enemy, because an overloaded ship runs worse. In Nassau and the nearby islands, loot is sold through people who live where law and profit overlap. Silence is valued there. It's also where you can get what decides fate at sea. Powder, shot, sailcloth, tar, medicine, fresh water. You understand that the pirate rear isn't a fortress or a base, but a network, a tavern, a warehouse, a fence, a corrupt official, a captain who knows nothing. Piniswai. That network, people vanish as easily as they appear. Yesterday you saw a man at a table. Tomorrow they say he sailed off, and you shouldn't ask where. But as money grows, so does the hunt. Authorities grow tired of chaos. The crown offers pardons. Trying to split pirates, surrender now, live. It sounds tempting, but trust is thin, because colonial law often changes face depending on who the governor is today. At some point, a hard hand arrives in the Caribbean. Governors gain powers, the Royal Navy strengthens patrols. Pirate hunters get legal authority to pursue them as enemies. In ports, papers are checked more often, and random sailors are questioned. Where did the money come from? And why does your ship smell of powder? You start hearing stories about ships taken without a fight because its crew was exhausted, and then men were tried in admiralty, quickly on testimony, without long proceedings. Hanging in such cases isn't rare, it's a tool. Bodies may be displayed in chains by the water so everyone entering the harbor sees the price of freedom. And it works. Fear returns even to the loudest tavern talk. Your own raids grow more nervous. You sleep less. You check the horizon more often. You understand that time is the main resource. The longer you're hunting, the higher the chance you meet not a merchantman, but a naval sloop. And here no swagger helps. A king's ship has better discipline, better supply, and often more guns. Even if you escape, you may lose sails, men, speed, and the next time will be the last. And still, wear builds inside the crew. On ships like this, friendship is short. Today you haul a line together. Tomorrow one man steals another's share, and knives appear faster than words. Alcohol heats arguments. Greed makes men blind. Illness and wounds make them irritable. You notice that the rules hold only, while everyone believes there's still a future, and still a share. When the future narrows to one more raid, the rules start cracking. At some point, you face a choice that doesn't look heroic. Either you take the pardon, hand over weapons, and try to become a legal sailor again, risking that you'll still be recognized or betrayed. Or you go back into privateering for some colony, and plunder becomes official again, but only as long as politics allows it. Or you keep going until luck runs out. And you already know how luck ends. Not beautifully, but suddenly. You remember why you went to sea in the first place. Not for a legend, but away from poverty, debts, a dead end. And you understand the sea doesn't give you an exit. It only changes the shape of the trap. You became part of a mechanism held together by speed, fear, and supply, an ending in court, the gallows, or an unmarked grave in warm water. If you do step ashore clean, under a pardon, life doesn't become easier. Your hands still smell of tar, and your sleep still tears apart at every loud sound. In the port, they look at you differently, with envy, with suspicion, with hope that you know a fast road to money. But you already know the truth. At sea, the fast road always runs through grind, blood, and chance. And chance is the most unreliable captain of all. And if one day you stand on the quay and hear the gulls screaming, you don't feel freedom. You feel only what you felt on deck in a storm, a cold clarity. The Caribbean golden age isn't a golden life. It's years when thousands of people tried to claw their way out of poverty, and the sea simply decided whom to keep and whom to write off.